Welcome to EWA's FIN-LYT podcast. EWA is a fee-only RIA based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We hope all listeners of this podcast will benefit as we deep dive into complex financial topics that we will make simplified for you. And we hope that this really serves as a catalyst so that you can make the best financial planning decisions for your family and also save time. Welcome everyone to FIN-LYT by EWA. Today I'm joined by Jamison Smith, and we're going to talk about, does it make sense to purchase real estate as a business owner, or are you better off leasing? So obviously there's many factors here. There's tax benefits to both sides, and there's also time considerations, and then also control considerations, among others. So Jamison, give us some initial thoughts to kick it off.
Yeah, let's just first set the stage with renting. If you rent your office, you're generally locked into a lease. Could be 5-10 years. You don't have control over it. Somebody else owns the building. You can probably do whatever you can make some changes, but within limits. But at the same time, it could be a lot less hassle. Something happens to the ceiling, you call the property manager, they come fix it. Very simple, very easy. Owning, you're in charge of all that stuff yourself, so you have to maintain the building. Could be cheaper, could be more expensive, depends. There could be some tax benefits. I'd say the biggest thing would be probably more control though. So I know you've analyzed this for EWA. What have been your general thoughts looking at each one?
Yeah, it's a very confusing. There's many pros and cons. So I think the first thing is you have to realize. Obviously I work with a lot of business owners, and recently I was golfing with a business owner, and unfortunately they were in an industry where their business was worth almost nothing, but the real estate they had purchased in different areas around the country basically saved them and still being able to retire. So the business that they were in would utilize the real estate, so everything was structured so it was a purchase of the business plus the real estate, but like 90% of the value they had derived in saving their retirement was from the real estate. So there's that side of it where it's like diversification. What happens if something happens in my industry? At least we own a physical asset. The other side of it though is, right now we rent because we're a fast-paced, young, growing firm, and the last thing, I don't think it's worth any of our time to have to go fix a plumbing issue or figure that. And obviously you can hire property management and stuff like that as well. So just purely from a business perspective, I think you have to first look at what's the longevity of your business. So the reason we're considering purchase, we expect, we're going to be doing this, for the rest of our lives, essentially. I don't ever see myself retiring in my 30s. So 30, 40 year, I'm just speaking for myself specifically. So at that point, purchasing a property, okay, it's check mark. If you think you're trying to sell it, grow this and sell it in 5 years, you probably shouldn't be purchasing a building because a lot of stuff could happen in the real estate market over that short a period of time. That could be a giant distraction to actually building your business up. So purely from like a cash flow perspective, are you purchasing a building and now are you playing landlord to 5 or 6 other tenants? That could be a giant distraction. Again, you can hire a property manager that will cut into the returns to do that. But then you may control the space. What I found in researching this is that what's currently happening, and just to address the current environment, is there's a lot of good deals out there. However, a lot of the loans that happen on these commercial spaces prior to COVID were what were referred to as non-recourse loans. So let's just say hypothetically someone bought a building for $5 million. And now the building's worth $2 million because half of it's vacant. Maybe the square footage, if it was $20 a square foot, maybe that's 10 now. No one wants to be in these, let's say downtown Pittsburgh, for example. And so let's just say hypothetically that there's $3 million left on that note. Well, the seller of that building, if they accept it a $2 million purchase price, right? They paid $5 million. They're going to accept a $3 million loss. Now, because that's non-recourse, if they go to the bank and say, hey, it's a non-recourse loan. The best offer we have is $2 million. We're not, and they just kind of let the building deteriorate. It's the bank's problem now. The bank takes it over. The bank has the note of 3. Now, if you're that person, they're taking less of a loss if the bank is now, selling it because, again, it's a non-recourse loan. So you see, the reason I bring this up is you kind of see these situations where there's a little bit of a push and pull of like, some of these owners are like purposely letting their buildings go south. And so right now it's an attractive time to look at getting a good deal. It's also a really scary time because as a new purchaser, guess what? Banks' philosophy is they're not handing out non-recourse loans. These are going to be, backed up by personal assets. And so I just want to say that because if you're currently considering this, it's a different playing field. If you're getting advice from someone that did 10 years ago, they may not realize the current playing field and what's all at play. So with that being said, let's just talk about tax benefits. If you're renting a building, it's really simple. If you're using the building that you're renting for the purpose of business, it's a tax deductible expense out of your business. Pretty simple. You're paying $100,000 a month, or $100,000 a year in rent, $100,000 is a tax write-off. If you purchase a building, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can depreciate the thing over 39 years. You can accelerate. You can do a cost segregation study, HVAC, landscaping, sidewalks, parking lots. You can do a 30-40% of it. You can do a 34% accelerated depreciation with a huge benefit up front to save taxes. Maybe you're saving so much in taxes, like the down payment is basically a wash of the tax savings. And then ongoing, all of your interest on the mortgage, the maintenance on the building, the appreciation, all this is a tax write-off. So if I buy a building and then I make, let's just say hypothetically EWA a client of the building, well, that's a way I can get money out of the company. Instead of going to my tax bracket, I can go to that LLC, and then out of that LLC, it's now passive income. So I can arbitrage that passive income by negating the depreciation, the repairs and expenses. And so maybe that rent payment I'm paying to myself, it's just a way for me to get money tax-free essentially out of my business because of all the deductions. Now that comes with a lot of strings attached. Maybe I'm managing other tenants. I'm dealing with all this other distractions, right? But from a tax perspective, owning a building, although more complicated, it could come with a lot more benefits, especially if you take an active role in that. Or if I'm 750 hours per year or more, then not only, that stuff could also then just come off of actual like earned income. If someone's in the top tax bracket, that could be saving you 37% federal, and coming down from there. So lots of considerations. Obviously, if you're running a successful business, it would be hard for you to take an active status on the real estate side, but maybe you have a spouse. If you're married filing jointly, it doesn't work. Suddenly they're the active. Well, it all flows onto one tax return. So that person, basically has a couple 100,000 negative income that positively affects your family situation as well. So we've actually advised that to several clients that have purchased real estate. Hey, let your spouse manage the thing. If they're interested and they want, let them run the books, let them run the coordination of the repairs, and let them put 750 hours a year or more into it and document it because it's going to save you an arm and a leg in taxes.
Yeah, well, just talk through if you are going to go through that logistically. So obviously you'd want the building owned in a separate LLC.
Yep.
To properly structure this correctly, and there's going to be some asset protection benefits if you merge it. If you merge it with your existing business and you have other tenants and they sue you, if it's all under one roof, there could be problems. But
yeah, although unlikely, you're subjecting your business to unnecessary liability, or you're subjecting the real estate to unnecessary if you're in a high profile business.
Yeah. So having a separate LLC, and then you basically would have a lease agreement between the business and the other business to lease it to them, and then. Like you said, let's say business one, you get the tax deduction from paying the rent, and then business two, where you flow the rent payment flows into. If you use that depreciation, it could offset all of that rent, and then or some of the rent, and then essentially you're pulling it out tax free because the depreciation is going to wash off the taxes. So it could be a huge tax benefit. And then the other thing is some people like that it's just another income stream. So I'm thinking of one business owner that we work with, owns a building, has tenants, has a business there, and it's kicking off like $200,000 a year of just after expense cash flow to the owner. He has to deal with a couple of tenants, but it's pretty
Yeah.
it's not that intense.
Lucrative.
Yeah. So it could work out really well. There's a lot of variables. But yeah, that's one thing is a lot of business owners like, well, I could have this other income stream that gives me some safety. And like you said, there's assets outside of the business that hold their value.
No question. Yeah, so there's lots of tax considerations. I think more important than the tax considerations, don't let the tax tail wag the dog, is what are the needs of the business? If you're in a business that's rapidly expanding in like the current space you're in, you have to keep negotiating rents, and maybe it's like you're on floor 2 and floor 4 suddenly because nothing's available. Well, if you're that rapidly, maybe owning your destiny a little bit more and owning the building and being able to. But one thing to be careful about, though, is that if you buy a building that's been in existence and they have all these old leases, you have to check what you're capable of. You may be stuck with a tenant paying you $10 a square foot for the next 10 years. Well, you're trying to get the cost up to $25 a square foot, kind of pre-COVID level. You may have a difficulty doing that, and you may not even have the power to boot, even after the lease is up. That tenant may have the first right of refusal to stay in the building. So you may be inheriting some really bad business deals that you don't know about, that you think, oh yeah, it's my building. Commercial real estate works a little bit different.
Yeah.
Than like a 1 year, family deal that you're renting a house to.
Yeah. And a lot of these leases are 5 to 10 years. So, a lot of times they're locked in. Well, what would you say if you wanted to put in a golf simulator to your business? Is it better to rent or own the building?
I think either or. You just need to have good negotiation skills if you're renting to talk to the building.
What's been your experience?
What do you mean what's been my experience?
Thinking about putting a golf simulator in.
Well, we're right in the middle of it. This was hopefully going to be a surprise. Now that's out in the open, not a surprise anymore. We're thinking, a lot of our clients like to golf, and they're looking at places that, unfortunately we've chosen our destiny here to be in Pittsburgh, where there's 5 months a year basically you can't golf. So, I think also after COVID, a lot of people kind of settled on these Zoom calls. I think better relationships can be developed face to face. So to do that, to convince people to come in, I think you need to have an
attractive offering.
Yeah, an attractive offering. So maybe we review your financials, and then we play 9 and 30 minutes on the golf simulator. So that's under strong consideration right now. Basically, we don't own this place, and we're looking at the ceiling's not high enough. So we may or may not have started popping out, and we found that we could actually raise the ceiling.
Get rid of the drop ceiling, and there's another 5 feet.
So luckily we work with a very good, good relationship with our building owner, manager, etc. So they're going to let us do it if we decide to do it. So you don't need to own a building to do really cool stuff, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, just from a business perspective, I think that's going to pay itself because
get people in the office.
Yeah. Bring their friends, and absolutely.
What about I think this is good to know, if you do office renovations when you rent, what are the taxes like?
Just all deductible. Yeah, they're all deductible. Any furniture you purchase, all deductible.
So you don't need to own the building to get
all the tax benefits. Yeah. No question. And just looking because I was considering purchasing a building downtown, and they were asking, basically what they were asking versus what I thought it was worth. It was half price. And I took it to the commercial. He's like, actually, you're absolutely right. I had it valued, and he's like, it's actually worth a little bit less because of these factors. So I think personally, if I were to predict, no one has a magic forecast, but I think things will get a little bit worse in some of these downtown areas. It's pretty scary out there, but
because nobody wants to nobody wants to drive into downtown to go to work when they can just work from their house and do the same thing.
Yep. My prediction is I think in 10 years we'll shift back to more people will be in we basically never left. We've always been here. We're deemed an essential business, and I think that was an important part of our camaraderie, culture, growth of the business from day one is being in person. While social distancing and following all protocols, obviously. But I think it's personally, I think there's opportunities out there, but I think that if you jump in too quickly, it could still be a little bit of a bloodbath.
What about, without giving too many details, one of your big would have been a regret, but not buying the building, probably 5 or 7 years ago that you used to be in?
Oh yeah, no, I think you're always considering this, and it's always like pressure. Like, oh no. But yeah, there was an opportunity where I could have bought a building at a prior firm, and so that would have been quite disastrous because I left that prior firm, and if I owned the building, that would have made things a lot more difficult and a lot more negotiations and legal aspects probably. And I've heard that building has lots of maintenance issues, and that was kind of my gut. So I'd be looking for something that's very streamlined, very well maintained. Something we could hire, outsource. I wouldn't want any of what we do for our clients or current business EWA to be disrupted in any way. It'd basically be a way to protect EWA if we think we need the extra space, or if we didn't have a good relationship with the current, building manager and felt like they could accommodate our growing needs, and that would be a stronger consideration.
Yeah, and I would say that's if you're growing. I mean, one of the downsides would be you're kind of locked into a space. So if you buy a space and you outgrow it really quickly, kind of like where you were before, like you could be in some serious trouble if you want to move, if you want to sell the business, etc.
I think if I put a golf simulator here too, and I buy a building, then I will be the only person in the new building, and you guys will all be here. I won't be able to get anyone to, whether we even are a tenant here. I think you guys will just show up and
we could just take the golf simulator and put it into the new one. The what?
Eminent domain. Once you've been into place at a certain level, they can't kick you out.
Oh yeah. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, okay. I don't think we're dragging anyone out if we put the simulator in here.
Well, you could just take the simulator and we put it in the new building.
True.
Yeah.
That would be the plan.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, bottom line, whether you rent or buy, definitely get a golf simulator. Regardless of what choice. We don't know whether you should rent or buy. We know whether you're renting or buying, you should definitely have a golf. So that's today's takeaway.
Yeah.
I think it's a good takeaway.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, case by case analysis, we're happy to help. I see the majority of our clients that have considered purchasing a building have purchased a building. Usually they're renting at first, but we're doing this deep analysis, understanding it's not as good. Neither is, but basically our takeaways, our advice is buying is not nearly as good as it sounds, and renting is not nearly as bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
But here's the needs of your business, here's your goals. And I'd say probably 2/3 of our clients down this path end up purchasing a building. A lot of them, we don't have any that purchase downtown, just full disclosure. These have been more around like established like suburbia areas around Pittsburgh or in other areas around the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually if you're going down this path, I would say more often than not you will end up buying a building, but just having a clear understanding of it's not as good as or bad as it sounds on both sides. Understand the pros and cons, but making sure that your peace of mind, time, returns, business needs, client needs should be first.
Yeah.
All of those things have to be balanced out. It's just not just you saw a TikTok video of how to save taxes.
Yeah. And I'll give one more example too that I think is applicable. So clients I work with, 2 physician, husband, wife, each own a private practice, and both paying a lot. 2 separate buildings, both paying a lot in rent. And one of the practices is surgery. They're surgeons, and they don't do their surgeries in the office. They go to a surgery center or hospital.
They're losing money.
And so the hospital just came back within the last couple of weeks and basically changed the terms of how much money they owe back to the hospital if they do the surgery there. So one suggestion or discussion we had was, what if you bought a building, you moved both practices into this building? It's gonna be less than both of your rent payments. Plus, you now could build this operating suite in the building, save money from what the hospital is charging you, do the procedures in house, and have all of these tax benefits that we talked about.
Surgeons, you get 2 codes. Typically from insurance, Medicare. If you do the procedures there, you get both. You double dip.
Yeah.
Not double dip. I mean,
you get more revenue.
2 sources of revenue versus 1 source of revenue.
And they could also have other surgeons in the area come operate in that suite and collect revenue off of. Yeah. So it's super nuanced, specific to the business, but that's just one recent use case that this is a heavy discussion and something we're really thinking about.
Yeah, I would say go down the path of education, empowerment. Realize neither is as good or bad as it sounds, but then usually it's a pretty obvious answer. But usually when it's like I want to purchase a building because I think it's a good investment, and you're running a full-time business, that's usually just keep renting.
Yeah.
But if you're like my business needs I'm worried about running out of space, that's usually the path. Or it's just more lucrative. Then that's usually the path where it's like okay, this is glaringly a no-brainer to purchase a building. Like if you're a surgeon or whatnot, or if you're have high inventory, stuff like that. You need to have the flexibility. In a services business like ours, and I'm thinking about a friend he actually negotiated 3 years all at once, negotiated a really low rent, and he's glad he did that. Flexibility, service-based business, you just need to be really flexible, and that that space and everything like that. It's not the same considerations in certain industries. I think it's very industry specific as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but all right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Look forward to catching you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Hopefully you found this helpful. Really hope this is as beneficial and impactful to as many people across the nation as possible. So hit the follow button. Make sure to rate the podcast, and please share with any friends or family members that would also find this beneficial. Thank you very much.